is the Anyone Can Farm Chat Wednesday night edition. I am Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. And I can tell you I'm here with my lovely hostette, Jill. And we both have our food freedom t-shirts on. All right, life is good. I tell you, I had an excellent day here on the farm. We've had 2 days of non-rain, which for this season is pretty good, getting 2 in a row. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, though. Been real tough in the Midwest. A lot of people getting rained out. We are not one of them. I'm looking at a couple of weeks before I really need to cut hay, and I'm thinking that things will straighten out. And I mow the entire area, a couple of patches at a time, but I really need to get it done today for when it starts raining again. We're pulling lots of stuff out of our greenhouse for the table. They are cutting hay across the road from me, so I'm back and forth periodically. Let's see. I am sitting poolside. Yeah, so this is a new addition to the old farms. It's an above ground pool. Economy thing. Last year was a real hot year, and a lot going to the lake, which is probably 15 miles up the road. A couple to get in at the county park and stuff, and it's just a lot. And the lake's not a little bit of an investment, not all that much. It was $1,500, and the life expectancy on these don't have a whole lot to talk about right now. I talked out today, so I would like to get right into questions.
Sometimes I get better reception down here, and I'm gonna.
I think it's working now. Yeah, it's working now. The light's not going to be as good, but the background's better. Is that okay, you guys? Is that going to be all right?
Hang on.
All right, well, actually, it's a nice view. This is our little breezeway. This little area that I'm sitting in right now used to be the old greenhouse that was attached to the house. And that was what we built when we first moved here. And now we have that greenhouse. So we no longer need this one. And this one, we didn't put this one together the best we could have. That's before I knew that certain types of windows worked and certain type of windows don't work. So it was never a very productive greenhouse. All right, hog harvest. We've been doing hog harvest for over 10 years. This is where we accept students to the farm. It starts on a Friday afternoon. We start with live pigs, and by Sunday afternoon, we've got sausages and prosciuttos, and we've broken the pig down into primal cuts, and then some of the primal cuts we've taken even further than that. You can come to this and know nothing. You can watch, or we can plug you in wherever you feel comfortable. It's really taking the plunge. It really is. But for the homesteader, I think it is a good thing because if you can slaughter a pig, you can slaughter a deer. If you can slaughter a deer, you can do a cow. You can do a squirrel. It all kind of works together. And it's not easy. I think in a lot of ways it goes against modern human nature, but it is something that we've found homesteaders that have the ability to do that are head and shoulders in front of their peers, okay? Because successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not, all right? So the game we're talking here is homesteading, And if you want to be in homesteading, the more things that you can do, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more successful you're going to be as a homesteader. Hey, you're shaking the table over there.
Oh, sorry.
So as a homesteader, we kind of feel as though the name of the game is to produce everything that we need for our families and provide a homestead to live on that's a decent place to live, and there's a certain amount of freedom, it's peace and quiet and things like that. So I think this class is important, and it always goes well. We figure 1 pig per 6 participants, and so every group of 3 people has a half a pig laid out on the table come Saturday morning. We do the killing on Friday, scald and scrape, split in half, prepare the organs, cut you loose Friday evening. You come back Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, and we hit it hard. And we're taking the halves and breaking them down into primal cuts, and then we go from there. On several of the primal cuts, we break them down even further than that. I don't go too far because it's an awful lot for a person to remember. You're welcome to bring your cameras and stuff so that you can really get some good pictures, and we do provide a book that Jill has created that you can take notes and all that stuff in. So, there you go. You got to find lodging downtown. And let's see, on Sunday we start salting. We start making sausages. We're talking prosciuttos. A lot of this whole charcuterie thing has become real trendy in the United States over the last 10 years. But it started out as a means to preserve your meats without the use of refrigeration or canning or anything like that. Now, this doesn't really work very well with other types of meats, not like it does with a pig. And the type of pig that we're going to be using is going to be the Mangalitsa. Obi! Yeah. No? And the Mangalitsa pig, we feed it a diet that's high in tannic acid, and it helps the fat to resist rancidity. So you can hang a ham at 60 degrees, 60% humidity, and that ham will actually cure, right? And we do this in the fall, so by, we go through the winter. By the next spring, there's enough curing done on that ham that it will not be a target of flies and things like that. So once you've gone through the first year, you can go 25 years with it. So you can preserve this stuff for a long time. It's really good. It's really good to eat. Very good thing to know how to do. So that's $500 per person. And you're going to want to find that on bakersgreenacres.com. Look under Anyone Can Farm and get signed up as quick as you can. I think there's already 5 or 6 people signed up already. And this is going to be in November now, so it's coming. All right. Okay, we are working on some videos right now. It's a little bit slower process than we thought. And these videos are going to be available for sale. Now, if I do a class here on the farm, let's say it's a fencing class, it's actually a lot easier than making a video, because with a video, there's a lot of editing involved and things like that. So when this group of videos is done, they're going to be available a la carte style, and we're going to put them right up on the Baker's Green Acres site. So if you want to watch this video, you can purchase it, and then you can, save yourself the trouble of coming to the farm. And my wife and daughter are doing the editing on it now and putting it together and all this stuff, and they're doing a great job. So I'm not sure how much they're going to cost, but it's not going to be much. not going to be much at all. Okay.
Oh, and if people have ideas for webinars, like an hour or two long,
Yeah.
or I'll probably be like a 2 or 3 hour long webinar.
Yeah, we're researching right now. Jill is taking some online webinars about how to do webinars. And a webinar would be where we actually have a camera person there on scene and we're doing something that we do. And then I can explain it as I'm doing it and you can see it as I'm doing it. So, but we kind of need an idea of what people, where they're at, what they want to know how to do. And then we can decide what we're going to offer. A lot of times the things that I think people need and the things that they think that they need are two different things. That's the way that goes. All right, I am ready to take some questions here.
Okay.
If you have some questions, Mother.
I do. Okay. I was just Mike. Yeah, better.
Mike Finn.
They butchered they butchered chickens, and a couple of them had some bruising. One was on the leg and stomach, the other on the wing. He wants to know if that's normal and okay to eat.
You know what? We see that quite a bit. Was the bruising, what was the color of the bruising, Mike? What was the color? Now, we haven't seen that this year, have we yet? You know how when you see that green?
Yeah, the green on the tenderloin, yeah. He's
Have we
not
seen that?
talking about
No?
that.
No?
But we have seen that, and you could talk about that. And that's just
Have we seen that this year?
Yeah.
You have? Okay. And then if we don't see it, and it just winds up being cooked, it doesn't become a problem,
We
does it?
still just don't eat it. 'Cause it's
How do we
green
know,
and
though,
yucky.
if we're not,
You don't find out until you get in there.
and then you see it
on the
after it's cooked?
tenderloin. Yeah, after it's cooked, or if we're cutting it up, then we find it
But
raw.
if we don't cut up,
Yeah.
then we
Bruised-
don't know, right?
Right.
And we just
Bruised
eat it.
stuff we generally just don't eat. We just
Okay.
leave it off to the side and
All right.
it's
Well, there's
okay.
your answer, Mike. If you got bad bruising, Jill's saying that we don't, obviously you're not going to sell it to somebody because it wouldn't look good. But a lot of times, the farm family is the one that winds up getting the broke leg chickens and the bruised chickens. So,
The rest
but
of the
Jill's
bird
saying
is
that
fine.
we just let it go.
Yeah. The rest of the bird is fine. We
Rest
just
of the
don't
bird's
eat the
fine.
bruise.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
don't eat the bruise. But sometimes here's what I was saying. When we split a chicken in half, let's say, there's a tenderloin muscle, and you don't see it unless you're cutting the chicken in half. All right, so you're cutting right down the breast. And sometimes if that gets bruised, that muscle in there, when the chicken's raw, it's actually green. But my position is you don't see it unless you cut the chicken in half. So I'm sure that there's been a lot of chickens that we've roasted that had that green tenderloin that we didn't see, and I don't remember ever coming across a cooked chicken with a green tenderloin. So, or
I
have
rip
you?
it out. Yeah, because I just get rid of it before
Oh,
you
you
see
do.
it.
Well, how do you know though if it's not split?
When you go to cut the chicken to serve it,
Yeah.
there's
Then you
this-
see it.
Yeah, then you see it.
And what's it look like?
Green.
Okay. All right. Well, there you have it. There you have it.
It's not a horrible thing. It just
Can I
happens.
have my coffee?
Yeah. So. Here, you can have my coffee.
All right. I'm ready for another question if we have one.
All right, that was a good one. Paul's back tonight. How do
Hey,
you
Paul.
guys water your pigs? He's tired of carrying buckets.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I do, and then there are some videos on the YouTube channel. I think one is chicken watering, and you get to see what I use to do it. Now, you can use a hose, right? You can run a hose from the closest spigot out there. If the pigs get a hold of that hose, though, they'll wreck it. So what I do is I run PVC pipe all over the farm, and it's like a work in progress. You know, the first year I was here, I may have run to one pasture, and that's that black plastic pipe. It's 300 feet for I think about $75. I haven't bought it in a long time. And then there's fittings that go with it, plastic fittings, really easy. You just use radiator clamps to hold it together. All of it's available at Home Depot, or most hardware stores have it. They call them barb fittings that go on it. And then you can put spigots on and things like that. You can run it up a fence post. I'm in northern Michigan, so after December 1st, November 15th, it's freezing at night and it's freezing hard. So anything that's on top of the ground is going to freeze. And so the watering system I'm telling you about right now, I can only use until winter comes. But what I'm using right now, okay, I have 3/4 inch going out close to where my pigs are. And then from there, I use drip irrigation line, which is 1/4 inch line. And I don't have any close to me right now, but I make lots of videos on that.
And that's actually your water system is one that people want to see in a webinar, so we should do that soon.
Yeah,
And then
we
you
should.
guys can see all the
Yeah.
details, the ins and outs.
Yeah, because I have a whole kit with all the fittings in it, and it just looks like a small fishing box. So this water line is just 1/4 inch. It is cheap. I get it at Home Depot sometimes. It used to be $5 for 100 feet, and now it's $4 for 50 feet. Go figure on that. But it's so cheap. The fittings that go in it, they're just barb fittings. They're really cheap. I'm sorry, I just don't have any close to me right now. And you can run it any place. You can run it on top of the fence. You can run it under the grass, up against the fence. I always keep it on the outside of the fence so the pigs can't get it. And then the straight fittings. Where's the Jeep? It's right over there. If I had that box, I could show you. That utility box that's in a Jeep would probably be helpful. The straight fittings, I will just point that line. There's a piece of line in there, Jill, too, if you can grab it. I will just point that into the pigs and turn it on. And it's just this tiny little stream going in there. And you might think, well, how can you feed 10 big pigs with that? Well, as soon as they've all gotten a drink, then it starts to make a little puddle there. Then they lay in it. So then they have a little wallow. But it's not like running a 3/4 inch line. It's just a tiny 1/4 inch line. The stream that comes out the end of it, I would say, is about 1/8 of an inch. And there's a couple places you can get it online. There's one place called Drip Depot, and then there's Drip Co. And then you can always just do like a drip irrigation, search and find all that stuff. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, this is my kit box here. All right, so I keep everything in here that I need. And I've got stuff in here. These are called barb fittings. You see that? That's a barb. And this is a straight fitting. Yeah. Sorry about that. And let's see how I can show that. That's a straight fitting, right? So this is the line that I use. See that? And then this straight fitting will go right into that. When this is cold, it's a little harder to work with. So usually you just warm it up by biting on it, and then this barb fitting will push right in like that. And you can build this system right out on the field. And, you know, I have a Leatherman on my belt all the time, so I have a knife on there that I'm able to work with all this stuff. And then you got fittings like this, T fitting. So, and then you have these things. These are little sprinklers. They make a little fountain sprinkler. You're jiggling the table there. Right? And they're adjustable. How are you gonna, you know, make them work? And let's see what else we got. You got these little waterers right here. This is what I usually use for the pigs. I'll just hang this in there and then open this just a couple of clicks, and it's just dribbling. This thing is actually called a dribbler, and it dribbles, makes a little puddle, and then, you know, they lay in it, so then it makes a little wallow for them, and they drink out of it. I'm gonna show a waterer that I've been going to build now for a while, and that's going to be something that I could probably show you all too. But I just got myself a cement mixer, and when you're watering pigs, you know, any kind of water that you put in there for them, if it's not heavy, they're going to move it around. And then if it is heavy and it overflows or they push the water out of it, then they kind of dig around it in the mud. And then the thing winds up off to the side, and if it's got a float valve on it, it winds up flooding. So watering pigs can be kind of tricky if you're new at it. You know, they're pretty destructive animals. Anything that you put in there, they want to bite on it and pull it around and push it around and rub on it and all that stuff. So any kind of water that you make has to be heavy, has to be durable. Can't have anything soft showing on it that they can get a bite on. Any hose that goes to it that they can bite, they're gonna destroy. They do make nipples. That's a steel nipple that you screw into a 1/2-inch pipe fitting, and they work pretty good. But then you have to have some way of getting the water out there. And if you run it in a pipe, like a steel pipe, and then they go to moving the water around, they can break that pipe. So this new one that I'm going to build is going to have a stanchion off the top of it, and then I'm only going to be running a 1/4-inch line to it, and I'm going to run it up about 5 feet so they can't get at it, and then it will come down through a heavy pipe that they can't move. It's all going to be welded and concreted together, and it's going to have a loop on top so I can just lift it in there with a front end loader. And then once they've made a wallow and they've tipped it off to the side, then I can move it someplace else. But the idea is you don't want to go out there some morning and the thing is submerged, so you got to, you know, go swimming for it. You don't want that. The beauty of the 1/4-inch line, this 1/4-inch line, is that there's enough there, but it's not going to make a huge mess if it breaks. Now, I use this watering system for my chickens as well. I'm not using it for cows right now, but you can, so long as you have enough capacity and the thing fills up during the night, you can do it. But I'm just not doing it now. Cows are not as destructive when it comes to, I use a float valve on my cow tanks, and so that the tank is always full, and the tanks that I'm using are 275 gallon. So, and the reason for that is if we ever have a failure, pump failure, or electricity goes down, at least I got 275 gallons of water. And this just happened, what was that, about 3 weeks ago. After lunch, Jill's saying to me, hey, the water's not working in the house. Oh, great. I was going to do something else this afternoon, but now I guess I'm going to be fixing. So I go out there, and our well is quite a ways from the house. And anyway, the pressure tank needed to be replaced, and it's all buried, so it became a huge project. I don't have a backhoe, so all the digging had to be done by hand, and we did not have the new pressure tank until the next day. So about 24 hours we went. And, you know, I had enough water for all the animals here, right? The pool was full of water. We could have used that. This pool doesn't have chlorine in it. It's got salt. So we could have used that. But, yeah, so that's what I do. And then here we go. I know this is going to really create a firestorm. It always does. But in the wintertime, I don't water my pigs. I just don't give them any water because we have a lot of snow, and we've been through this to where we, you know, supply water to our pigs, and they just make a mess, and they're not really interested in it. They're eating snow. They get used to eating snow, and that's what they do. So a lot of people don't think that that's right. I've heard all kinds of accusations about cruelty and all that stuff, but I watch my pigs eat snow. I'm with them a lot, and I got turned on to that by our friends from over in Austria that told us that if you're feeding potatoes in the wintertime, frozen potatoes, there's enough moisture in that to hydrate the pigs. And, you know, there's a bit of a language barrier there with them, but I deduced from that that the pigs don't really need all that much water in the wintertime anyway. So there you have it. There you have it. We let them eat snow in the wintertime. And we've been on this farm for 15 years. And, you know, when the pigs are wanting something, if they're hurting for something, you know it. You know it because they're squealing. And my pigs, if you saw the video I did yesterday, I just put them out on 100 by 100 field, and I had planted it like 6 weeks ago in field radishes, and then the field radishes got to a certain point. I think I planted them a little bit too thick, and they bolted, so they weren't going to grow any further. So I figured I might as well put the pigs in, so I did. And I'll make a video in a day or two when I plow the field next to it up and replant it. I said I would show that. So if you check, let's see, it would be the Facebook page, my Facebook page, Mark Baker, is where I made those. So if you want to go there and check it, I put videos everywhere.
Yeah, no, they might not be able to see them there, but they'll
No?
be able to see them on the Baker's Green Acres page. They're
Okay,
coming
on
out.
the Baker's Green Acres page, that's where you see them. And it might be a day or two getting them up there, but it, yeah. So that's what I do. That's how I water my pigs. I've been doing that for years. You can run this stuff every place on the farm. Make sure you get the brown or the black. Don't use the clear because it will get all gummed up with algae. So there you go.
There you go. Susan wanted to know, do you vaccinate your outdoor animals? She doesn't really want to, but the vet's sort of leaning on her.
The vet's leaning on you. Imagine that. Absolutely not. Vaccination is you're giving the animal a dose of what you don't want them to get in hopes that their immune system will come up, and if they don't have it, don't vaccinate. Don't do it. And try not to bring animals on your farm that have been vaccinated. And your vaccination program could be, I don't vaccinate. But yeah, vets want you to vaccinate. Of course they do. So do doctors want you to vaccinate your kids. Of course they do. You know, it's part of the medical complex that says that without this vaccine, you're going to be sick. So what? We were created, and our animals were created to have to rely on something that some company came up with. I don't believe in I don't believe in vaccines. I'm sorry, I just don't. I've heard too much information from people that I think that are pretty smart that say that vaccines don't work. And boy, that'll set off a firestorm. But if you really look into it, whenever a But we just had this thing happen in Michigan just a few years ago. It was PEDV, porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, PEDV, right? And at first, they were saying, well, when you have a baby pig that dies from diarrhea, grind it up and put it in your sow's feed, and that will give the sow immunity, and then she won't have it anymore, right? And this mysterious virus came in on somebody's boot in a 7-Eleven. A guy from way over in Minnesota, I think, was the story that they had. And anyway, it wiped out quite a bit of the herd here in Michigan. And then they came up with a vaccine. So I never got it here, and I didn't know anybody that got it. We were looking around for it. We couldn't find it. I don't even know if it ever really existed. Who knows? I think the vaccine companies create a problem, or they just say there's a problem, and then they come up with a vaccine. So the vaccine, last time I heard, was to vaccinate every pig in the state of Michigan. It was something like $9 per pig, something like that. Or was it $11 per pig? I don't know. It was up there though. It was a pretty. And as soon as you start vaccinating, that's it. You got to keep vaccinating. So you're always vaccinating your new sows. No, no, I don't believe it. So my answer is no. I don't vaccinate my animals. Not any at all. I'm not totally down on everything like that, like antibiotics, but I am not going to use them in their feeds to keep them healthy. What you want to do on your homestead is you want to get a good, healthy rhythm going, healthy soils, healthy people, healthy environment, healthy attitude, healthy animals, and it will keep itself going. It will keep itself going. And then be really careful about bringing things in. And I'm really down on hog chow. Really down on hog chow, because hog chow has raw protein in it. I mean, I get down on this all the time. And you will have people at the grain company, the elevator, whatever, wherever you get your feed from, will say, "Whoa, if you don't feed your pigs hog chow, or hog concentrate, they call it, they won't grow." Well, I haven't done it for years. You don't have that horrible smell on the farm. I've got quite a few pigs here now, and I don't have the horrible smell. And also, that smell is because everything that they can't put in a Spam can at the big slaughter facilities, they dry it out, they pulverize it, and then that's a main component in hog concentrate. So they're feeding hogs back to hogs. Like, it's a big no-no if you want to feed cattle back to cattle, because you get mad cow disease, right? But feeding hogs to hogs, I guess that's not a problem. It's only a problem because it's only not a problem because you don't have. It's not affecting, their bottom line, the huge producer's bottom line. Is it producing a healthy product? That's questionable. I mean, you want to eat something that smells like a hog barn? I don't know. I don't. I can still taste that in the meat. So keep hog chow off your farm. We've had things happen here where I gave some hogs to a guy. He wasn't able to handle them, brought them back, and put them back in with my pigs while I wasn't home, and they were little pigs. And I didn't notice them, and all of a sudden I had this outbreak of something, and I lost time, and it just was bad. They got really bad hair condition, and I had to isolate a bunch of them, and then continually treat them, and finally, whatever it was died off, and I don't have it now. So now I don't need to take any new pigs onto my farm, so I don't. I just keep what I have. So vaccination is, if they're not sick, don't treat them. You know, if they're sick, let them work through it. You know, and if they don't work through it and they die, that's the fix. All right. The strong ones will make it. Now, I hardly ever have animals die. You know, once in a while when we farrow, I'll have something happen, but it's usually not because they're unhealthy. There's usually another reason. So, I'd stay. My opinion, I'd stay away from it. I just would. I mean, vets are in the business of selling product and then administering the product. So this vaccine, I'm going to sell you the vaccine. Oh, and I got to come out and do it, and I get $90 an hour to do it. So, and it's a farm call. So I have friends that are vets, but personally, I don't use it. Next question.
Okay. Scott wanted to know, how far do I need to keep a boar away from the gilts before first breeding?
Okay, well, here's my philosophy on this, and this isn't mainstream either. If you get a hold of books that people have written about raising hogs, on the farm and stuff like this, they basically they digest university books, and then they kind of write a book on it. That's what I've found anyway, because I've got both. I've got university books, and then the books that we get from, say, Tractor Supply, the thin paperbacks about hogs on the farm, or the Homestead hog, or things like that. The university books are geared towards agribusiness. Okay, so that's CAFOs. So they will recommend that you cut their tails off, that you cut their teeth out, their canine teeth, and this is, you cut the tails off so that when they're in a concentration or a little concentration camp, there's nothing for them to grab onto, because they get frustrated and they bite each other's tails. That's why they tell you to do that. I've never docked a tail here. I've never done it. And when I first started, I was cutting the teeth, but the teeth, once you cut them, was more of a jagged edge, and it was causing more trouble on the sow's teat. And so I thought, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? And then I researched it more, and it's not a good idea. You don't want to be doing that. Plus, their gums can get abscessed from that, so don't do that. And you're probably wondering, I didn't ask you that question. I know you didn't, but you asked me about when their first farrowing should be. So you're thinking you want to keep that boar someplace else until that sow is 13 months old, right? Because that's what they say in the books. Okay, at 13 months, she's going to be big. She's going to have gone through several gestations at 13 months. And she's going to drop a ton of eggs, right? And he's going to inseminate her, let's say at 13 months, and let's say 12 eggs get fertilized. And then she's just out running around eating, and all of a sudden, I've been feeling kind of fat lately, and all of a sudden, labor comes on. She doesn't know what it is. Nobody tells her. And all of a sudden, she goes into this trance, flops over, kind of unconscious. Sometimes they come to a little bit, get up and walk around. But then they go into their trance, and all these babies, poop, 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 come out. She comes to, and there's 12 babies running around her, and she doesn't even know what they are, at first. So what I do with a heritage breed pig like a Mangalitsa, I let them, I run the boar in with the sows. So on their first gestation, the boar gets them. And we've found it's always better to mimic the way things work in nature, right? So if these were wild boars, Russian boars running around the Pacific Rim someplace, and there's this little sounder out there, and this young sow, she will get bred by one of the herd boars, maybe the herd boar, or maybe one of the, I think they call them satellite boars, on her first gestation. Then she's going to flop down. When she comes to, oh, 3 little babies, or 4 little babies, or 6. But it's manageable. You know, they're not going to be running all over her and getting her all upset. So what I do is I just keep the boar in with my new sows. They get inseminated first go around, and they have a small litter, and they wind up being really good sows in the long run, because then the next time they know exactly what's going on, and they can kind of take things in stride. The reason why they tell you to do the 12-month thing or the 13-month thing is because in the industrial agriculture model, those sows would go in what they call a gestation crate. And if you want to see some horror, you look that up. And it's a crate where she can go in, but she can't turn around. And all she can do is lay down, stand up. She defecates out the back and eats out the front. And it's done so she won't lay on babies. So she may have 14, 15, 16 babies, but she can't lay on them very easily. And it's done for efficiency. So if you're going to have a sow in a farrowing crate position, you want that sow to produce you the most babies first time. And so they'll wait until she's 13 months before they'll inseminate her. And most of the times nowadays, they have a boar in there for heat detection, but they're AIing them, and they are AIing them, you know, with a super flush of semen that, forget it, you know, those sows will have a lot of babies. It's insane. And then they take the babies very early, and they have these nurseries that have loudspeakers that have the oinking noise, and then this thing comes down out of the ceiling. It's got like, you know, 100 nipples on it, and then it's got pressurized, and it's not even sow milk, it's something else. So, anyway. But that's not what we're talking about in the homesteading model. We want to mimic, at least I want to mimic, nature as closely as I can. So, when you think about diet and everything else for your Mangalitsas or whatever kind of pig you're going to raise, or whatever animal you're kind of going to raise, you think of what the animal would encounter in the wild. The animals would eat seasonally. You know, there's going to be more of some stuff at some times and less at other times. It's not going to be like the USDA balanced diet that we're all used to. You know, here in North America, American lifestyle, I can have cherries in the wintertime if I want. Well, they don't grow in the wintertime, but they're shipping them up from Chile or someplace like that. Is that the way it's supposed to be? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't do it. I eat very seasonally. This time of the year, I mean, this time next month, I'm going to be living on cucumbers all day long because we get hundreds of them. And that's okay. That's okay. In the wintertime, no cukes. I eat pickles.
Nate wanted to know, can pigs eat raw or roasted coffee beans?
That's a trick question, right? Raw or roasted? I'd say try it and see what happens.
They could get real active.
Yeah. Coffee doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt pigs. The coffee grounds from our house goes in the pig bucket, and that goes out, and there's no coffee grounds laying around out there, so they eat them. So yeah, it's not going to poison them. Also, coffee is a great, if you need if you have sows that, if you have a sow that won't take care of some of her babies for some reason or something, there's a variety of things that happen, and you have to bring babies in the house. Wintertime, things like that. We mix up, let's see, usually it'll be like milk, Karo syrup, or honey, molasses, something sweet with a lot of energy, but then coffee. Put some coffee in there. And it's like a shot of stimulant that will just make them so they can't just sleep. And if they're awake, they want to feed, and you just keep walking the feed to them. And pigs are real easy when it comes to taking them from their moms if you have to for one reason or another. We had this thing one year. I had two sows that were getting ready to go, and they plopped down outside, both of them, right next to a hut, and it was fall, and all I could do was park my 2-ton truck over them to give them some shelter because it was raining, right? And they did the old 69 thing where, they were going to farrow at the same time, and they did. We came in the house, ate, and then we went out to see what was going on, and we had given them bedding and all that stuff, and the babies were dispersed. I mean, they were in a 360 degree circle, and they were anywhere from 10 to 35 yards away. Even some of them we didn't find. But the ones we did find, we gathered them all up, and my kids were with me. We brought them all into the office. I forget how many there was. There was 15 of them at least, 15 or 16. And some of them were cold enough where when I put it inside my jacket, it was too cold on me. So we brought a lot of water bottles down and stuff like this, and we got them all warmed up. We brought them in the house that night, and we fed them. Midway through the night, these little babies were up and out of the box that we put them in, and were under my bed looking for something to eat. All right, so we kept feeding them all night long and in the morning, and then we went out, and the sows were laying down. We gave them all these babies. They were fine. So it can be done. And, the babies didn't know which sow was their mom. But there were times here when I would have 15 sows that had farrowed. And it would be kind of fun to watch because, let's say they were, 2 weeks into it, and one of them would flop over and start grunting and feeding her babies. Then another one would flop over, and then another one. It's kind of like the way women go to the bathroom when you're out drinking at a bar. They all got to go together. And you'd have all these pigs and then when they get a little bit older, this pig would say, well, I'm going to go check that sow out over there. So she'd go over there and push a smaller one off and get on. So they switch around all the time. I've heard people say that they go to the same station all the time, but that's not true. Not in my experience.
All that from coffee beans.
Yeah, coffee beans.
Scott and Paul both had similar questions here. How long did it take for your daikons and field peas to grow in the pig fields? Paul wanted to know how long it took to get them the right size for the pigs.
The right size, that's the thing, is I think I planted them too close, or too many of them came up. Like maybe in the past, not as many of them germinated, and they would be spaced out like maybe 6 inches, because in the past we had daikon radishes in there that were 2 feet long and like that big around, and they were beauties. And like I've told you guys before, we had some that came in the fall, and our apple trees were in at the same time. And you know, you expect to see a little kid wandering around here munching on an apple, but they'd be wandering around here munching on a daikon radishes. They were that good. You'd take them out and cut a chunk out like this, and then pull the skin off, you know, with a knife. And the meat that was in there was just sweet and great to eat. So the question, how long? All right, those ones, I think they were about 6 weeks when we were eating them, 6 or 8 weeks. I got 6 weeks on these ones now, and the radishes are about this long, but they're only about that big around. And I brought some to the house, and they're woody, so they're not that good. The flavor's good, but you can't just crunch it off and chew it up and swallow it. It's just full of fiber. But the good news is the pigs don't care. When we let them in there, it was like they loved it, you know, and they're still loving it. So you grow a field like that, and you need feed, and your radishes are only that long, you let them in there. Let's say that I had another field that was doing better than that one, and I didn't want to put them in there, and they're getting too big. You know how like a turnip, the perfect size turnip, if you go to a farmer's market, is the size of a softball. Anything bigger, and they downgrade you. Anything smaller, and they downgrade you on it, right? Pigs don't care. If it's got a wormhole in it, they like that. So my customer is my pigs, and they will utilize that field, whether it is the premium radishes or radishes that didn't do so good, radishes that have worms in them. They really don't care. So that's kind of the good news. You know, you can, like, I've done many videos on that grow field. There's 3 fields that are connected, and I just finished the fencing on it this week. I think I finished it up Monday or Sunday. And so I've got just this awesome area that you can put from, I got 10 in there now, but you can put as many as 30 in. And then you'll always have a field that has something on it that you can move them to. And while that field is being munched down, I can be cultivating and planting another field. So that's exactly what I have now. They're on field radishes, but right next to them, there's field peas that didn't do too good either this year because of the weird weather that we're having. And I'm not sure it's just because it's wet, and it seems like there's something else going on, but I don't know. Okay, but it's a really good system. I'm really excited about it. Now I have it all watered, and I'm gonna put a permanent house in the middle field, and that's gonna be my winter quarters for anything that I hold over in the wintertime.
Permanent.
Permanent.
As permanent as anything gets, right?
Yeah. Jill's
Giving you a hard time.
give me a hard time about the use of the word permanent because we change things all the time. You know, what works, like in the commercial farming business, the name of the game is pieces. You know, you want as many pieces going out the door as possible. But in the homesteading business, now you have time because you're not putting out as many pieces of pig that you have time to really, I want to work on this pool. I want to work on the mushrooms. I want to work on planting some nice trees. I want to plant some flowers. I want to go fishing. So with the pigs now, the field that I have, I'm going to be able to produce between 10 and 15 pigs a year, and that's all I need. I mean, that's way more than I need from my family. But, you know, they come in handy for trading and, you know, sell a little bit here and there, you know. But I'm not going to be totally engulfed with 30 sows and moving stuff all the time, feeding constantly. Now our feeding it's a breeze. I'm only feeding, what do I got? With the boar, I think I have 14 pigs or so, and that's it. And then my cows are out on pasture right now, so all I do for them is move fences every day and then milk. That's all I do for them, and their waterers are automatic. So like, it's really neat to think about that, because the cows are down there right now, and they are gaining weight, and they are producing milk that's going to go in the cooler tomorrow. You know, about 3 gallons of milk I get from one cow a day, and it's premium raw milk. And now we're learning all about how to make cheeses, new kinds of cheese, butter, ghee. I had ghee for dinner tonight. So I mean, there's just so many things that you can make, but you have time to do it because I'm not doing thousands of pigs or thousands of pasture poultry.
Scott also wanted to know if you tilled the field prior to throwing seeds down, or did you just rake them in?
I tilled it because I have a tiller, and the way I am trying to do this, Scott, is I'm trying to increase the fertility on that field as best I can. So if I can get down 10 inches and I can bring sandy soil up to the top and I can bring that loamy organic stuff down to the bottom, I'm increasing that layer of topsoil. And what I do periodically is I have a cultivator that's just a series of spring shanks, and they're pretty stout. So I'll just put down pressure on them with my 3-point, and I'll sink them down like as deep as they'll go, and I'll pull them as far as I can until the tractor won't do it anymore. But if you don't have that, and you plant daikon radishes, those daikon radishes will go down deep, and then the pigs will go down after them. So the pigs will do that work for you. When we started this, I didn't do daikon radishes. I started it with rye, and I still recommend using a lot of rye. Rye is pretty reliable, and it'll germinate in early spring, it'll germinate in late fall, and everywhere in between. It's cheap, and it puts down a pretty good root system, and you can plant it on really marginal soils, and the pigs will eat it. They will manure it back, and they'll urinate it back. Don't think that you're going to put pigs on a hay field and they're just going to graze. People say this too. People say that there's some sort of Midwest something or other pig that doesn't dig. Pigs dig, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you have pig fields like I do, they will totally harvest every blade of grass off of that. And then if I need to, I could go in there and just scatter seeds. You don't have to have equipment. You can do it mostly by hand. I have equipment now, but I didn't when I started. And I'm working up to the point, and I've made a lot of my equipment too. So that's how I do it. And I've got plans to make some other stuff too that's going to work even better and look cooler.
And do you give the pigs regular feed if they're foraging on all of that stuff? Do you give them regular feed at the same time?
Well, like I was saying, pigs can binge eat, and I don't know. I've hearing commentary lately, and it's contrary to some things that I have said, but I think it's like pretty important for me to tell you my experience in that sometimes my pigs won't get any protein for a month. And there are experts that say, oh, that's terrible, they have to have a balanced diet, or they're not going to be all they can be in the U.S. Army. But I don't think that's true. I think pigs in the wild would eat seasonally. So we're giving our pigs as many acorns as we can pick up in the fall, but we don't have those in the spring because they're not available to us. We'll give them all the apples that we can pick up off the ground here, which is like millions. And they'll eat those and they will just turn their nose up at their feed. They seem to do fine. I mean, I have no health issues. My rate of growth is very good. I have some nice pigs at a year old, really nice. And if I see a pig at 300 pounds at a year old, I think that's pretty good rate of growth for a Mangalitsa, anyway. And I know what I'm talking about here because we butcher a lot of them right on site. And, you know, if we're going to sell a pig to somebody, we usually shoot it and then we sell it live weight. So we weigh it instantly after we shoot it, or shoot it and bleed it and then weigh it. And, you know, I'm routinely over 300 pounds at a year old. So there you go. So what I'm saying is, if they're out on a really nice pasture and there's a lot of good stuff out there for them to eat, go ahead, load them up with feed too, and you know, it'll just stockpile what you've grown in the field and stretch it out. So I feed a lot of junk bread. A lot of time they'll lay out there for days, and you know, it'll be in the mud and everything else, and they'll wait until it gets nice and tenderized, and then they'll eat it. You know.
Alrighty. Mike has a red wattle with an abscess on his throat. Is it normal? Should I do anything? He did add that it's down a little bit today.
Yeah. You know, I'm a big proponent.
Yeah.
Of things fix themselves on livestock a lot of times. Usually they do. I think one of the last times that I had the vet here, well, no, that was that West Nile thing with a horse, and the thing was flopping around on the ground, and
Which wasn't West Nile.
or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But before that, I had this calf that was super listless and not doing very well. And the vet said, well, I'm going to give him this, but I don't have any right now, but the stuff's coming in this afternoon. I'll stop by here on my way home from work and we'll give him the shot. Well, when the vet came in the afternoon, we couldn't catch the calf. So the shot, I paid for it, and it went in the garbage can, and I forget what it was. But that's when I started figuring out, most of the time, stuff fixes itself. We're doing this thing right now. Well, actually, Jill's heading it up. And it's not like we woke up and said, hey, let's do this thing. It's like the path led us here to where we are right now. All around this property, there are plants, and we don't know what they are. So we call them weeds, and we just say, well, they're no good. But this one over here, well, that's lettuce. That's not a weed. So we make salads out of that, and we eat that. And then this one over here, something else that we plant is good. But then there's this that grows, and it's called, let's say, lamb's quarter. And we found out a while ago that, wow, look at the animals eat that. They love that stuff, and it just grows everywhere. It's a weed. Sometimes it grows and it's only like this high and it's nice supple leaves. Sometimes it'll go 10 feet and it's stocky at the bottom. But the leaves on it are really tasty. And so Jill started to learn about the different things that are around us, the different plants that are around us. So, I mean, I can't tell you where this goes. I mean, there are it seems like everything that we need is right here. We just don't know, and we seem to say, well, if I call this person, they've got a drug in their box that they can sell to me, and that's the fix. Wouldn't you think, as intricate as our environment is, that what we need could be right here? You know, there's all kinds of different plants, and we're finding out that a lot of that stuff is here. As a matter of fact, anybody that's local and would like to go and hear Jill discuss what she's discovered tomorrow night in Cadillac at Apple Valley. It's kind of a health food store in Cadillac. What time is that?
5:30.
It's at 5:30 in Cadillac. And Jill's learning all kinds of stuff about this. We're learning about detoxification and all this stuff. Now, the animals have a tendency to eat some stuff sometimes, and other times they don't. I'm grazing cattle right now, and the particular field that I'm on, I did some frost seeding on it years ago, and now it's just this tangle of clover, trefoil, daisies, alfalfa, and it's really super wet, so I can't cut it. But all this stuff's growing up, and then there's a lot of stuff that the animals do eat, and then there's stuff that they don't eat. And I don't know what everything is. But I was looking at it this morning while they were grazing, and I'm thinking, if we eat the meat and fat from these cows, and they're eating all this stuff, could we be receiving the benefit from those plants that they're eating? I would have to say yes. I mean, I'm not a physicist or a chemist or anything else, but it just makes sense to me that a grass-fed meat, a diversified diet that those bovine are eating, they seem to have been put here for me, because I'm definitely a meat eater, and they're definitely not meat eaters, and so I don't know how I got on that subject.
Yeah, I was just thinking, did you answer the question about the abscess?
Oh, the abscess.
You were going
Yeah,
really good.
I'd let it go, Mike. I'd let it go. I would just let it go, and I think it'll work itself out. I've had a really mean cow that had a nail in her foot that I could see, but she wouldn't let me near it, and it went away. So it's surprising the things that will fix themselves. And I'm a hypochondriac, I've been told anyway. So then when I get distracted, all of a sudden I realize that aneurysm that I thought I was having when I got up in the morning is gone. So I think things just kind of fix themselves.
As long as they don't quit eating and drinking and
Yeah, if they're
doing pig things,
yeah,
they'll be fine.
pigs, if they're eating and drinking, leave them alone. And you know, our experience with vets and pigs is they know how to manage them in CAFOs, but the guy that's got 10 or 15 pigs out on the pasture, they don't know. You're better off going to somebody that's been doing it for a lot of years and say, hey, this is what the pig's doing. And generally, experienced people will tell you. You know, in my case, you're asking me, and my pigs are so healthy that I don't really have a whole lot of answers to give you. I really don't. We've just been blessed with really healthy animals. Is there another question?
There is. Chelsea wanted to know, how do I show my new piglets how to get water from nipples?
Well, what you're going to want to do is get in there with them. All right, get on your hands and knees. You're probably going to want to go over to the nipple and start drinking off of it. And they'll watch you do that, and then that will teach them how to do it. Or have your kids do it, like one of your younger kids get in there and do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. they'll find it. It's really weird because you think, oh, they're never going to find it, but they do. And as soon as one of them finds it, then they all find it. I got really stressed when I first started using watering nipples because I thought, well, how are they going to know? And there was an old guy, Carl Hinderigger, said, don't worry about it, they'll find it. And they did. And then I passed that information on several times to people, and it always works out. You know, when an animal needs water, especially pigs, I don't care how you fence them in, that's the one thing that they will breach a fence for. Whether it could be 1,000,000 volts, but when they need water, they're going to be on the search for it. They will find it. And water has a smell to it. So if you have a nipple that's sticking in there and you just push on it a little bit, you know, or if you want to, I don't know, if you want to make it easier for them, put a dab of peanut butter on it. Then one of them will find it, and the rest of them will say, "Hey, Tony's got something to drink." So,
And then you'll have to keep them from making it into a wallow.
yeah, they will. They'll figure out how to hold it so it'll dribble and.
All right. I didn't write down. Oh, Paul
Paul.
wanted to know if you ever give your pigs apple cider vinegar.
No. No, I don't. I know apple cider vinegar is some tremendous stuff. Probably instead of drinking Pepsi, you should probably just get used to putting some of that in a glass of water. It's way better for you. Why would I give it to pigs? I can't think of a reason why I would. But it would be along the lines of if you wanted them to eat something and they weren't too interested in it, that would draw them to it. But I haven't done it, Paul. But I just haven't.
And that was all I had.
That's it?
Yeah.
Are we about out of time then?
It is 9:10.
9:10. Okay, so we're over. All right. Well, this is great. Let's see. If you could share this and tell your friends, we'll keep it going because we like doing this. And you can check us out over at bakersgreenacres.com. Jill's always updating that and putting different things in there. Yeah, let's see where this goes. It's good to network on things. I don't have an update for you on Hidden Creek Farm. I'm going to call and find out what's going on, but I'm not hearing the horror stories that I was before. So, I guess the only advice I could give you right now would be if you're running a small farm and you want to put in place a little bit of a level of protection, you could go ahead and join the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And that's one of those deals where you pay $100 a year, and then if you get persecuted by somebody for your farming operations, there's a pretty good possibility that they will represent you if it comes to a court situation. And it's not a guarantee because, you know, depending on where you live and who you're going up against, they may not be able to handle it. But a lot of times they've helped people out pretty well. They helped me out. So, and along those lines, in your course of study for your homesteading, please download the Bill of Rights to the U.S. Constitution and know that that's a list of things that your government cannot do to you. And you are covered with the right to farm under the Fifth Amendment, where it says that your life, liberty, and property is protected under due process of law. Okay, your property is your process, and if your process is homesteading, you're going to run into things with townships about zoning and things like that. But I'm under the impression right now that zoning is illegal. Because I remember a few years ago an incident that happened where Bureau of Land Management personnel, agents of the federal government, did not like people talking to them, and so they set up what they called a free speech zone. So if you wanted to talk freely, you had to go in that zone. Well, I'm here to tell you the United States is a free speech zone, and I don't agree with a township or county or anybody else setting up zones where you can do certain things and zones where you can't. I think that your constitutional rights transcend all of that. However, if you don't pull that sword and swing it once in a while, you may not have it. But with that, I'm going to sign off. This is Mark from Baker's Green Acres, and we will see you next time. Good night now.